So they are asking how, see this, compare and contrast the views of Kautilya and Machiavelli and statecraft. Now this is something which is, Machiavelli is compared with Kautilya on statecraft, right? So this you can write under Machiavelli also. Whenever you are discussing Machiavelli, we have to study, compare with Kautilya, compare both and contrast both fellows on statecraft. What is their views on statecraft? Right. This is what another question that they asked. Plato was an enemy of open society. So now this is something of the first question in Plato, right? The first thinker. So Plato, on Plato, what they asked is the concept of Plato was an enemy of open society. This was criticism of Plato by Popper, right? Critiques of Plato. In that we have to study this 20 plus 15, 35 and 10. 45 already. 10 plus 15 plus 20. Next one is discuss Gramsci's notion of organic intellectuals. Gramsci's notion of organic intellectuals. Organic intellectuals. What is his theory of organic intellectuals? Gramsci's theory of organic intellectuals. Now, how it is related? If you want to break hegemony in any society, you want some intellectuals, and that intellectuals are known as organic intellectuals. Break the hegemony which is existing, for that intellectuals are required, and that is called organic intellectuals concept. So David Easton's model of systems analysis, this comes under the so-called comparative analysis. When I am studying comparative analysis, we'll discuss about system, right? 15, 20, 35, 15, 35 plus 15, 50 plus 10, 60 marks. 60 marks for asked in 2015. ఇరవై ఐదు పదహైదు 30 40 50 10 15 20 15 20 plus 15 plus 15 20 plus 15 plus 15 60 marks in 2014. What is the composition, or what are the questions that they asked? Have a look at it. Jean Clemens, from which context he has given this? Political theory is not an escape mechanism but an order scoring. After behavioralism, he has given as it is declining. I said John Clemens is one thinker of post-behavioralism, right? Now, All silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. J. Smith. All silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. Again said by J. Smith. Silencing. All silencing of liberty. All silencing of discussion is assumption of. All silencing of discussion is assumption of infallibility. What does this mean? Don't silent liberty. If you are silencing the so-called discussion, you are silencing liberty, and hence J. Mill laid foundations for liberty, but he is called as reluctant Democrat by Wiper. So the question is 10 marker. Now, explain how Machiavelli's application of empirical methods to human affairs marks an important stage in the evolution of political science, where we studied this empirical method to human approach. This is historical approach to political science, right? That is what the question is. Next, empirical method to human affairs marks an important stage in the evolution of political science. Friends, we study this under the concept of political theory itself in your historical approach. I discussed this. This Machiavelli has played a crucial role in making uh, the political theory to move away from the so-called philosophy, right, or legal ethics. And he said that you apply the so-called empirical or data, or from where you have to data, you take that data from history and do it. So they are asking us to write about contribution of Machiavelli to empirical approach. This is what the thing is. Center to Aristotle's political thought is his classification of different types of constitution in the politics. Politics is the book of Aristotle. So central to the political thought in his classification of different types of is his classification of different types of political constitutions. Now, what they are asking again, one famous question on him. So, central to the entire theme of Aristotle's discussions is classification of constitutions. Is the central theme. That is what they have asked. And he has written a book called, I just said no, the politics. In his book, this is the central theme. That is what the concept is. So, different types of political constitutions. Explain the features of deliberative democracy. Padihenu, 15, and then 15 plus 10.
Sir, Hanna question is there, sir.
Yeah.
Hanna question. Power is never a property here. Upside only, sir. Upside.
Power is the never property of an individual. It belongs to the
Ah, yes, sir.
and remains in existence so long as the group keeps together. Inherent. Now, this can be studied as a concept of power. There is one separate topic called power. So I thought that we can relegate it to power. Nonetheless, let's look at this. Power is never the property of an individual. It belongs to a group and remains in existence only so as long as the group keeps together. Now, it is inherent concept of power. Now, look at you have one concept called power in your paper. So, this is something related to power. and legitimacy. Power and legitimacy. Syllabus లో ఇంకొక separate chapter ఉంది. There you have power and legitimacy, where Hannah Arendt has said, it is never the property of an individual. It belongs to group and remains in existence. So power is a property of group. Not of an individual, and it exists as power exists as long as the group exists. As long as group exists, power exists. This we'll study under power and legitimacy also. So basically, if you give this to power, so the answer questions are 10 plus 15, 25, 10 plus 15, 25. From extra concept, Hannah Arendt, you have one more thing here, called 15 marker from Hannah Arendt and 10 marker from Hannah Arendt and 15 marker from Machiavelli's concept of empirical approach to political science. Right. So again, if we do classify this, if we add both, it comes to 50. So if you want, you can add this also here, Machiavelli, his concept of applying empirical approach to study human relations and how it helped in the evolution of political science as a subject. Alright, that is what the question is. So this you can study as historical approach in political theory. Right, this we have studied already, because he said that politics has nothing to do with your religion, nothing to do with your ethics. As a result, he separated it and he made it to go for factual analysis, from where you will get facts from history. Right, this is how they have started giving more relevance. This we already discussed this under historical approach to political theory. So this is up to 2014, 2013. You know, soft copy of that, but I already shared it 2013. There is no soft copy, so you have to get this hard copy 2013 paper. I'll just go through 2013 paper. Right, there is covenants without swords are but words of no strength to secure a man at all. Thomas Hobbes. So they are asking one question, saying that covenants without swords are nothing but, and Hobbes they asked one question. Covenants without swords are nothing but mere words. This is what they asked. Covenants without swords are words, are mere words, and of no strength to secure a man at all. And of no strength to secure a man at all. Covenants means agreements. So this is Thomas Hobbes' famous statement. Right? From there, they ask this question. Next one is Ambedkar's critique of Marxism. Explained as per Gramsci, the distinction between hegemony and domination. Now, this is what some question which is related to power. Again, Gramsci's concept of distinction between hegemony and domination. Now, again, there was one question asking on this from Gramsci, that is difference between hegemony and domination. What is the difference between it? Right? Distinction between hegemony, hegemony, hegemony and domination, and they are asking explain us to have or show the difference between the both. That is what the question is. Show the difference between both. That is what the question is speaking about. Next one is discuss in what sense Marx's understanding of state can be considered as materialistic. Now, Marx also set on state concept, and now it is asking how Marx has classified state as materialistic. So, this you can classify a subcomponent of Marx ideology on state. Marx ideology on state, and they have asked this question: discuss with what sense Marx's understanding of states can be considered as materialistic. This again you study as in this another theory called state, or another topic called state. Right? Next there is 115 marker. Comment on the assertion of Laslet that Filmer and not Hobbes was the main antagonist of Locke. Critiques of Thomas Hobbes. Filmer and not Hobbes was the main antagonist of Locke. This was said by a fellow called Laslet. Laslet. So here it can also be seen as critique of John Locke. The critique of John Locke was Filmer and not Hobbes was main antagonist of Locke. Commented by Laslet. So they are asking critiques of John Locke. So 15 mark plus this is 1 mark, 15. Gramsci's distinction between hegemony and domination, 15. And then covenants without swords are but mere words and of no strength, 15 plus 15 plus 10, 40 plus Marx's understanding of state, 55. 15 plus 15. 10 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15. 55 marks. You can give one to state if it is possible. This see what the question paper is from 2013 to 2017. In 2012, they have changed the syllabus. So the new syllabus for optionals have come in 2013. So from the new syllabus, look at the composition that they are asking. 2021 45, 45. In 2019 60 marks were asked, 45. So in the last 4 years, 45 marks have been asked, in which there are three questions. One is 10 marker, one is 20 marker, one is 15 marker from this political thinkers. Right? Not only that, one thing that you have to understand from this subject is, once you understand this subject, you understand the next component of the subject. Most important is, you understand the most important aspect of this subject. Right? What is that most important part of this subject? Look at the syllabus once. Theories of state. No, look at this second concept, state. If you want to understand state clearly, if you want to understand the concept of state, liberal perspective of state, neoliberal perspective of state, Marxist perspective of state. Just now we have seen how Karl Marx's concept of state is materialistic, pluralistic concept of state, colonial. So in the state, they are speaking about ideologies, justice, equality, keep it aside, rights, keep it aside, democracy, keep it aside, power. Now, power has been most hegemony. It has been dealt by Hannah Arendt and Gramsci. Gramsci has famously said about hegemony, and they have said that there is some slight difference between hegemony and uh, the so-called domination. And then Hannah Arendt also said on hegemony, saying that hegemony is the major reason for totalitarianism, right? And the concept of power is presented in groups, not in individual. So again, from the concept of thinkers, they are going some questions on powers also, or power is against divided or taking its roots from thinkers. Political ideologies have come from the thinkers itself. Liberalism, socialism, Marxism, fascism, Gandhianism, feminism, all this has been a deduction of the so-called Western political thought itself. So one thing that we have to understand is, from Western political thought, if there are 45 marks for UPSC, but this is this political thought which is making us to understand the other components of the subject, such as political ideologies, chapter 8, power, chapter 7, and then theories of state, right? So from political thinkers, you'll reach to political ideologies. They have proposed their ideas, so ideology has come. From ideology, based on this ideology, you will come to know the theories of state. Not only that, you also have few people like Marx, Gramsci, and Arendt. They spoke on the so-called hegemony, power through hegemony, hegemony versus domination, totalitarianism. So one thing that you understand here is, if you understand Western political thought, half of your so-called section A is done. Half not, at least 70% of your section A is done. Because the roots of all other things comes here itself. All these persons have spoken on something about liberal ideology. Ideology is direct outcome of thinking. So next one is power. They gave their ideology. Democracy, they gave their ideology on that. Rights, equality, justice. So everyone has given their own concept of this. So 60 to 70% of your entire section A depends upon understanding the Western political thought itself. So that is the main importance of this uh, paper or of this topic itself. The topic itself is very very interesting and very important for UPSC because they are asking. Now, if you look at the nature of the questions here, in all these nine, the nature of the questions is static, which means once you know some static components, once you know what is the structure, you can easily answer this, and you cannot bring in some contemporary relevance of this. You cannot write the answers very dynamic in this. The answers are static. Plato's view of or criticism of Plato, Aristotle's classification of constitution. These are all static things. You cannot change or you cannot add your own version in this. The only thing that you have to do is you have to look at some commentaries and you have to be ready with that commentaries. Until and unless you are ready with that, you cannot have it. So more or less the importance of this is, so from the last 4 years, from the previous year questions, what I mean to say is every year on year, you have at least 45 marks in this paper, one 10 marker, one 15 marker, one 20 marker, right? 45 marks. This is the relevance at least minimum. You can get this even in the coming years also. And the second thing that you have to understand is this is very static in nature. As it is static in nature, it is very easy to get these marks. The third component is it's had, if you understand this, this is about marks, MARKs, marks. But if you are trying to understand this subject, it is helping you in the entire section A. So this is the relevance of Western political thought. Three things: marks, static, and section A relevance. Look at the questions. Let's start with Plato. What is the questions that they asked on Plato? Look at Aristotle's critique of Plato. Aristotle's critique of Plato, idealism. And then there is one question of Plato. Plato is an enemy of open society. And in Aristotle, they asked one more criticism of Plato, saying that Aristotle critique of Plato's ideology or Plato's idealistic nature. This is what they asked. So first topic here is Plato. Now there are two questions which are asked here. So there were two questions which were asked here. There were this Plato critique. Both are critiques. Plato was an enemy to open society. Aristotle's critiques of Plato ideology. So the question that they are asking is criticism of Plato. Why Plato was criticized. But in order to get to understand why Plato was criticized, you have to understand what he has propounded. What Plato propounded to get this criticism. Right? What Plato exactly did to get criticism. But the question that they are asking is criticism of Plato. After Plato, the second thing is you have is Aristotle. Look at Aristotle. Now Aristotle, they have asked diverse questions. Aristotle's concept on politics and classification of constitutions, idea of politics in modern day democracies. That is one question. Classification of constitution, and then how he criticized Plato, and then what he said about equality, what he said about revolution. These two are again linked because he famously said that it is inequality. If there is no equality, then the ultimate effect is revolution. So, if you look at Aristotle, so Aristotle has started by criticizing Plato because Plato is the first thinker. The second thinker is Aristotle. He started telling his ideas by criticizing this view, right? Critique of this fellow, and then he started propounding his ideas called constitutions comparison. He has said about equality, citizenship, and other things, but equality to revolution. This is what his idea is there, or his domain is there. After this, you can Machiavelli. Look at Machiavelli's questions. Machiavelli's questions, more or less, they are reflecting on one thing that is called secularism concept of Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli, this is called secularism. Separation of politics from religion is called secularism. This we have studied in historical approach, because Machiavelli clearly said that don't make your subject politics and religion, you separate it, right? He is the first person that he has said, and that is called secularism. So the question is on secularism. Three times they are asking on Machiavelli's secularism. So what is Machiavelli's concept of secularism, or how he is known as the father of secularism? Religion and politics, and then compare and contrast Machiavelli's and Kautilya's statecraft. So this is what they have asked, comparison between these two guys. Otherwise, Machiavelli they asked only on secularism. Plato criticism, Aristotle criticism, plus some diverse views on equality, Machiavelli secularism. Now after this, Thomas Hobbes. Look at Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes starts explaining his thing called from state of nature. He is the first propounder of state of nature, and he said that the outcome of state of nature is agreement, that is called covenants. And in the covenants, one political obligation for the king is to secure the life. Right? These are the three things that they are asking. So Thomas Hobbes, the famous propounder, he has said about state of nature. So the question is revolving around state of nature in Thomas Hobbes, or Thomas Hobbes state of nature. State of nature is one thing that they are asking, how Thomas Hobbes viewed the state of our nature before the so-called uh, the theories evolved. Before the state of nature అంటే ఏంటి, స్టేట్ ఎవాల్వ్ అవ్వకముందు నేచర్లో న్యాచురల్గా స్టేట్ ఎలా ఉండేది అనేసి హీ స్టార్టెడ్ టెలింగ్ ఇట్. యాజ్ అన్ అవుట్కమ్ ఆఫ్ దాట్, అటువంటి సిస్టంలో సరిగా లేదు కనుక వీ వెంట్ ఇన్ టు అన్ అగ్రిమెంట్ టు ప్రొటెక్ట్ అవర్ లైఫ్స్, దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ covenants without swords, so agreements. Now in that agreement, it is the political obligation of the king to protect the so-called people. This is how he said that state evolved. So Thomas Hobbes' question is revolving around state of nature, and the rest of the things are evolution from this state of nature, right? And they are saying that Thomas Hobbes, people felt that Thomas Hobbes is speaking against Locke, but not. There was one person called Lastet who said that it is not Hobbes who is criticizing Locke, but it is Filmer. This you can study that under the heading of John Locke itself, right? This I'll say. After Machiavelli, Hobbes, you have one person called Locke J. Mill. Now look at Locke. What question they asked? Locke, the father of liberalism. Now, he has extended some concepts that was given by Thomas Hobbes and he is known as father of liberalism. So why John Locke is called father of liberalism? So Locke is famous proponent of liberalism, and Filmer and not Hobbes was the main antagonist of Locke. Right? Why criticism was there on this person? Right? We have to understand this. Now before that, try to understand this. The syllabus is from Plato to Aristotle, Aristotle to Machiavelli, Machiavelli to Thomas Hobbes, to John Locke, to James Mill. Right. Now Thomas Hobbes said about social nature or state of nature. Locke also said state of nature, and he has said he is called as the father of liberalism. Right. Now James Mill, the James Mill, he has given women suffrage, and then he has said that don't silence the discussion, which means again he is speaking about liberal values, right? He is speaking about liberal values. You women suffrage, right? Silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. Infallibility means that which cannot be uh, uh, taken away. So silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. Why he has said this, we'll understand this. So these things are projecting James Mill as a democratic person. Democracy. In democracy, what will be there? There will be liberty to speech. There will be liberty for women also, for universal adult franchise. Not only for women. In democracy, there will be political equality. So James Mill's concept on democracy, or he has given more concept of democracy, particularly participative democracy. He is asking people to have participative democracy, and then Viper said he is a reluctant Democrat. So now understand this. J.S. Mill has extended the concept of liberty to democracy, and then he said that democracy has to be participative, and he said that this participative democracy can give women suffrage, right, and can give freedom of speech. And then there was one criticism, and J.S. Mill said that though he is a Democrat, but he is a reluctant Democrat. And this is the criticism on this fellow called J.S. Mill, reluctant Democrat. What is this reluctant Democrat? He appears to be Democrat, but he is very reluctant. Viper said this famous statement. So by this point of time, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, J.S. Mill. This is one school of thought. Then comes a fellow who breaks all this, and that person is Karl Marx.